So it's my distinct pleasure to introduce two folks who I consider celebrities in this industry, Stuart Butler and Kate Patay.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being up so early to join us. I appreciate it. I'm going to step out of your light, Stuart.
Sure.
Put him in the good light here.
I'm not comfortable on stage, so.
I couldn't tell at all. Thank you all for joining us this morning. Kate Patay with the Search Foundation, and we're thrilled to be a part of this. Stuart has been a fantastic supporter for Search and everything that we do, and we're very appreciative for all of that. And I know you have some very special people that you would like to honor.
So we have partnered with Philip Ford. I really miss Marion Clifton. Marion Clifton started this show. This is our 30th anniversary of the show. And she passed in December. And I'm just going to tell you that I'm getting a full lesson of what she really did. And it's humbling. And I have more respect for her now than I've ever have. And I really, really miss her. So we partnered with the Search Foundation and we honor Marion, and we're partnering with Philip Ford to raise. Our goal is to raise at least $10,000 towards the Search Foundation in honor of Marion, and we made it really, really easy. Does everybody have their Philip Ford bottle? Can you guys pull it out for a minute?
I'll grab mine for this little moment, our Insta-worthy moment.
Yeah, so we're gonna share a little video real quick to show you how it works, and then we're gonna do something together, okay? So.
At Philip Forward, we believe choosing to reuse is a simple act of generosity that shows love for our planet and the people on it. That's why we created an app that helps amplify the impact of every reuse, allowing users to track their environmental footprint while also contributing to charitable giving projects around the world. Here's how it works in 3 easy steps. Fill it, scan it, give it, and repeat. Scan with your phone camera each time you reuse, or download the free Fill It Forward app to unlock additional features that track and personalize your ongoing impact. For those that already have a reusable, add a Fill It Forward tag to your favorite water bottle, coffee mug, food container, and reusable bag. You can scan anywhere, at home, school, the office, and even your local coffee shop. With every reuse, you've diverted another single-use item and unlocked a donation to one of our charitable partners. Together, as individuals, schools, and companies, we've eliminated millions of single-use items from ending up in our landfills and oceans and helped fund hundreds of charitable giving projects. Join the Fill It Forward community, a community that's always giving.
Of Marion, that this is the charity of choice for all of it. So very easy for you to simply fill it forward, or on the slide that has Marion's information on it, you can scan that and donate directly to the Search Foundation. As my good friend Don had mentioned, by the way, a big round of applause for Don. That was a great introduction. Love him. With Search Foundation, yes, we do give out money for event individuals that are in crisis, as he mentioned. It's anyone that's in the industry. It could be someone that's sitting next to you. We do it all privately and anonymously. You can apply and no one else needs to know, but I've been personally approached at events. We were setting up an event not that long ago, and the gentleman walked up to me with the that we were using. It was a catering company that had some temp staff, and he came up and said, "Is this the Search Foundation event?" And I was like, "Yes, it is, actually. You know, you're in the right spot." And he goes, "No, I wanted to make sure this was the Search Foundation, and that because I had to tell you something." And I was like, "Oh, what's that, sir?" And he said, "This is my first event back. I've not been to work in over a year. I was in a motorcycle accident last year. I was in a coma, and my family applied to the Search Foundation on my behalf. And because of that, we kept our house, we kept my kids fed, and we didn't lose everything while I was ill. And now that for this to be my first event back, I can kind of tell the story now and not be completely tearing up, but that just meant so much to me when someone comes up and gives you that hug and says, "You actually helped me at this show 2 years ago, I believe it was. I had someone come into the search booth and tell a very similar story from a local catering company. So it's so touching of what search does. If you know someone that is in need, please share this resource with them. If you're in a position to be able to help, I encourage you to do so, whether that's with Fill It Forward, through Stuart, helping to host one of your own events. Every bit counts. So if you'd like to learn more about search, please don't hesitate to ask. And Stuart, from the bottom of my heart, thank you for all you do for not only search, but for our industry as a whole, for bringing together such amazing people on this stage and in this room together.
Oh, thank you for being here, Kate. This is an amazing organization. Please, you guys take out your bottle. We're going to start the donations right now, because when you fill your bottle, we're going to make a donation, okay? And you can also go on here and make a donation. So if you got your camera, you guys just scan that. And let's see if, boom. And then you guys will make a donation to the Search Foundation. So keep on filling forward. Keep on, sustainability is a huge piece of our industry. We got to figure out how to save this world. So we'll do it one refill at a time. We'll start here, all right? Thank you.
Thanks, Stuart, I appreciate it. So many give backs all in the same room. I do want to take a moment because we're going to go into a fantastic little sustainability panel. So we've got some experts here that are going to share with you, and if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask, but I think they're going to answer a lot of those for you. First up, we have Ryan Spies with Alaska Airlines, who's joining me. We have Gwen Migita with Point B Consulting, and Brianna Trent with Climate Pledge Arena and Seattle Kraken. How exciting is this? Please join me on stage, friends. These are some of the most sustainable individuals I know. I was so excited getting to know each of them a little bit better. And while they're finding their seats, one more shout out to one of the Search Foundation media partners, Ms. JT Long from Smart Meetings, who is here and will not only have a wonderful panel later, but she is a top supporter of Search as well. So don't hesitate to ask her. If you see anyone wearing these golden heart pins, they all symbolize some sort of donations to Search. But you guys, thank you so much for joining us bright and early today. I'm going to start with Ryan. Do you want to give us kind of a quick intro, who you are, what you do, maybe a fun fact that no one knows about you?
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning. My name is Ryan Spies. I'm the Managing Director of Sustainability at Alaska Airlines. Hopefully, if you flew here today or flew here this week, you joined us in the air. I've been doing sustainability for big companies for more than a decade. And it's growing in popularity, obviously, and importance to basically everyone at this point. And it's super exciting to be part of Alaska Airlines. We're doing a lot. We are obviously a West Coast airline. And so people really do care about this space. A little fun fact, my phone is not on silent. My wife is due in about a week. So if I have to run off stage, I'll let you know.
We will give you grace
Yeah.
for that. That you get to leave the stage for.
All right.
Gwen, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do?
Sure. So I'm a sustainability consultant. As my 8-year-old says, I get to tell people what to do at home and at work, so it must be a fun job. So fun fact, I worked in travel hospitality in convention areas for about 20 years. Actually, I worked under a convention area for about 5 while the Caesars Palace convention was being renovated. My office was leaning up against a wall, and the walls were literally being ripped out behind me, as my office was continuing to stand there. So a lot of drafts, a lot of country music and different music rigging throughout the day as my offices were being, about a 5.0 Richter scale earthquakes.
Oh my goodness. Ms. Brianna, would you care to tell us a little bit more about what you do? I feel like your team did a really cool tour yesterday for a lot of the individuals, but what does your day-to-day look like?
Yeah, so I'm B. I'm the Director of Sustainability for both the Seattle Kraken and Climate Pledge Arena. Just really quickly, any Kraken fans in the room this morning? Woo. Okay, a few. That's right. That's what I'm talking about. That's the energy we needed. So my day-to-day, carbon accounting. The past 10 years, I've been trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up, and I've landed at the Kraken. I do all of our carbon accounting. I won't bore you with all the formulas yet. I track all performer travel, travel, fan travel, merchandise sales, electricity, water, waste in the arena, you name it. I know we'll dive into that a little bit later. But it's just been so exciting understanding how the world of sports and sustainability really intersect. And I'm excited to dive into that with you all today because it's something that's really opened my eyes. Because I'm used to attending, shows as a fan, not sitting there thinking, geez, that's a lot of pyro, that's a Scope 1 emission. So excited to talk with you all about that today.
Well, speaking of that, what are some of the trends that you're seeing moving forward in your arena?
Yeah, I mean, over the last 10 years, sports has had its own role to play on sustainability. And over the last 5 years, I'd say sports has had a pretty strong focus on waste reduction because that's something that we can control right now. And it's something we can see the impact, by simplifying our supply chain, on-site sorting, et cetera. But Climate Pledge Arena has really set a new bar for sports and live entertainment. For those of you who might not know, Climate Pledge Arena is a complete reconstruction project. The building was built in 1962 for the Seattle World's Fair. We opened our doors in October of 2021 with the mission to design and operate the most sustainable arena in the world. We've decarbonized the building, which means we do not use any fossil fuels. We run off of 100% renewable energy. And we've really set a new bar on how folks are thinking about designing and operating these buildings and what actions we can take place before fans enter the door, but then steps that we can take when fans enter the door.
That is so cool. I love that. On the topic of trends, what are we seeing with Alaska Airlines? I know you've got a lot upcoming. What's that look like for us?
Absolutely. So flying is obviously pretty fuel and carbon intensive. And unfortunately, that's not really going to change very quickly. What we're trying to do now is address those emissions through a number of ways. One is, how do you fly more efficiently? How do you take better routes? And we're using AI to help us do that. But what we really need is help on sustainable aviation fuel. So right now, fuel is generated through fossil fuels. There's this thing out there called sustainable aviation fuel, or SAF, and it's made from all sorts of really cool things, whether it's waste greases from food processing, residues from farms, or even CO2 being pulled out of the air and mixed with hydrogen, renewable energy to create synthetic jet fuel. Those are all much, much, much lower carbon fuels that drop right into planes. The challenge today is that they're less than 1% of the fuel that's even available for demand. And so how do we scale up an industry to keep us flying, to keep our emissions going down as we address the climate crisis? It's really challenging. What we are feeling very positive about are there are a lot of corporations out there that are also concerned about their travel and how they're addressing emissions through travel. And so we have partners, Microsoft, Amazon, some of the big companies out there that are actually helping us buy this sustainable aviation fuel. Who here has never looked at the price of a ticket, right? There's not a lot of margin in the airline business. It's very competitive. So we need help paying for this green premium, this more expensive fuel to scale that up. So corporates help us. The other really exciting thing is individual flyers are helping us. In December, we offered to our guests, you could help us buy sustainable aviation fuel. You would get credit for that. We would also give you elite qualifying miles to get you to your next tier of loyalty. And we said, oh, maybe some flyers will do this. We're going to set aside 100,000 gallons of fuel, see if they would participate. In the month alone, 5 times as many people decided to pay hundreds of dollars to purchase sustainable aviation fuel and to get them to their next tier. It just blew our minds and made us really excited. And so that's something that I think you should take away, is that the demand is there for these sort of greener solutions, even if they do have a premium attached. There is a subset of the market that is growing. We think about them as like the next gen of travelers that are willing to pay for these important things, these things that mean something to them. They can see the climate is changing and they want to have an effect on it. It's very helpful to us because it allows us to scale this industry.
That is just so cool. I feel like I'm going to be the first one over in that speaker VIP room to ask more questions about that. Who else in the room flies for work? Is one of the travel warriors out there? I see you. Just curious, how many corporate event planners are sitting with us? Okay, independent? And then suppliers in the room? Okay, I'm just always kind of curious because I want to make sure that we're bringing you the information that's going to help you to go back and do your jobs better and what's relevant. So it brings me to my next question. I mean, if it's a small business, someone that you can take one step to do something to change for the better, to be more sustainable and green, Gwen, I'm going to ask you first. What would that one step be that a small business could take?
I think the biggest thing is to prioritize your first, say, 18 to 24 months. What are the biggest goals, your goals and your targets, not in terms of necessarily emissions, but what is material to your business? As a supplier, it'll be professionals, as a professional services provider, it may be, how can I increase value to my buyers, since a lot of you are suppliers? What's material to my business might be around ethics and transparency, disclosing my impacts, whether it be a social impact or environmental impact as well. And not to do too much, because the first wave of a strategy may take 3 to 5 years, easy. And most individuals or small companies are already stretched, I think, in general. I used to run a small company in the West Pacific. I was the one person, and then we expanded to about 10, 20 people over time. But really being focused on what your outcome is and how can you build the sustainability value as a supplier for value or as a corporate partner for value, and how to differentiate yourself. It's very much embedded, but having that impact that's both environmental and social, which could be labor practices, labor relations, contributions to the community, et cetera. So things that you kind of already are doing as good partners and good stewards, but embedded into your business strategy is the best thing to do.
I love that. And to start with just that one small thing, it's like my grandmother always used to say, how do you eat an elephant? It's one bite at a time. You just pick one initiative and you get that going and you really dedicate yourself to that and make sure. You were talking a little bit about supplies. So I think that brings into question supply chain a little bit. B, do you have how have you engaged your supply chain to make sure that you're being as sustainable as possible?
Yeah, so a brief bit of history, but before we opened the building, we were mid-construction when we accepted the naming rights agreement with Amazon to name our building after a pledge and not a corporation. For those of you who aren't familiar, the Climate Pledge calls on large corporations like ourselves to go net zero carbon by 2040, 10 years ahead of the Paris Agreement, and that can sound pretty intimidating. But with that agreement came an array of sustainability goals that we as an arena and team were to meet as a part of that partnership, 2 of which really relate to supply chain. We have a really ambitious goal to divert 95% of all the waste generated in our building away from a landfill. We also have a goal to eliminate all single-use plastic fan-facing for purchase before 2024. We achieved that in October of last year, which was no easy feat, thank you. But part of how we did that was through partnerships. I'm not doing this alone. My team of 2.5 is not doing this alone. We had a really neat opportunity from the very get-go before the arena opened to select partners who had similar beliefs and values as us, many of which are also signatories of the Climate Pledge in which we are named after, like Pepsi, Alaska Airlines. And so we got this unique opportunity to pick these folks to help us with these goals. As it relates to the supply chain, we brought on a food and beverage vendor, Delaware North, who maybe some of you are familiar with. In the very beginning, we worked with Delaware North to say, hey, we've got these really ambitious waste goals, and we're supposed to eliminate single-use plastic by 2024. Everything's made out of plastic. How are we going to do that? So we got with our partners, Pepsi and Delaware North, and figured out a strategy for us to meet those goals alongside them. So if you walk around our concourse as a fan, you are only going to interact with products that either are compostable or recyclable. We've eliminated all single-use plastic fan-facing for purchase. On the chips and candies front, in terms of supply chain and how we were able to affect that upstream and downstream, we just stopped selling items that could not be converted by our vendor to a material that wasn't single-use plastic. So chips and candies, we can't sell them if our vendors aren't able to supply us compostable or recyclable materials, which was a really cool way that we were able to use our platform to help kind of plant these seeds in these suppliers' heads on, hey, this is coming, we're asking for it, and if you can't meet our demand, we'll actually just move on without you.
That's pretty cool. The words you're not supposed to say out here, is greenwashing, and I feel like this is the exact opposite. Some people have done it just to check a box, but that just shows walking your talk, because it can be hard to say no to business, to say no to a vendor that you might have to not serve something that people are wanting and looking for, but you're taking that stance, so I applaud you for doing that. And I know Alaska's doing some pretty cool stuff supply chain. Do you want to touch on that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you were fortunate enough to fly on us today, and we were fortunate enough to serve you, you probably noticed there are no plastic cups on our planes anymore. We're the first airline to eliminate those, as well as plastic water bottles. I have my fill before you fly bottle here. We encourage our guests to really think about that. And when it comes to supply chain, you want to make it easy for people, right? You want to take sort of that somewhat individual choice out of the equation when it comes to some of the sustainable actions, because you know some people will do it and some people won't do it. So as much as you can work upstream to eliminate some of those harder choices, the more impact you can make. So if you can eliminate single-use plastics, if you can encourage flyers to bring their own waters, that's a really good thing. And it's tremendously important when you're hosting events. If you can make those choices for people, and that will absolutely flower out. And I would say, the other thing that we think about in supply chain is hyper-local. Right, so I mentioned we're a West Coast airline. We try to serve West Coast food on our planes. We try to partner with West Coast-based suppliers, because that's what people want. They want to feel a part of something. You're creating a community, and I'm certain with your events, you're thinking about that too. People are often flying from somewhere else to attend your event. They don't want the generic, thing that they could get in their own hometown. They want something that's from where they're at. So really think about, how do I incorporate local? Because that, I think, differentiates you. And it certainly makes it feel like it differentiates us, so that when people are flying Alaska Airlines, like, that's a different experience. That's something that we can take home with us. And that all works up your supply chain. How can I source more locally? How can I take those choices?
I love that, and I always have my refillable water bottle with me for this. So I would love if, when all of you either hop on that plane or hop on a train to head back home, tag us, tag Search, Northwest Event Show, Alaska Air, and this whole team, so we can really show the impact together. That's how these movements keep pushing forward, is every single one of us continuing to move that ahead. And locally, I'm thinking venues, sourcing specifically, and I know, Gwen, you're a pro at that. When you're sourcing for a supplier, a partner, what do you really look for in that?
I think one is it's adaptability as well. I mean, I want to be reasonable, support their businesses. I think a lot of the transition to growth, say even organics in the earlier years, it did take 3 to 5 years minimum, and an infrastructure change for suppliers to provide what was needed from, say, community markets, et cetera. So I think with suppliers, it's adaptability. We're on it for the long haul, right? It shouldn't be a transaction. It should be a relationship. So context setting, my team, Point B, helps companies become better suppliers, and we look at the environmental aspects. We look at meeting requirements of, say, big tech companies. But in my old role, I worked with the procurement department quite a bit to co-develop suppliers for capacity. And what could that look like? If it's a women-owned business, for example, we might look at investing in, say, a longer-term contract to draw more work around repurposing goods, right? So Bottlehood was the name of a company, went from one employee to 200 employees in a couple of years by just looking at the longer-term investments of that. I think that's needed. If you're a supplier wanting to work with mid or large companies, think about differently of what's the investment. Showing up and becoming a problem solver, because a lot of these big issues that Brianna and Ryan mentioned are huge, are significant, right? So they are transformational. And this is what we're looking at with sustainability. It's economic and social transformation as well, as much as environmental. I think that the first two are much harder in some ways than environmental. So think of transformation and long-term partnering.
Did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and I would just say, part of how we are successful is the simplest and most free thing you can do, which is just ask the question. Ask the question what your supplier can do on sustainability, on local, on social. Just ask the question. Those market signals have an effect. When our customers write in or call in and say, hey, why didn't you do it this way? Or, hey, I couldn't recycle this, or I didn't love this dish, we are looking at that and we hear that. And I think if you are asking the questions of your suppliers, and suppliers, if you are asking it of your suppliers, those filter through and they're heard and they actually absolutely have an impact on sort of building that infrastructure that we need.
I love that. I do want to take a little left turn from that because, Gwen, I know you have a very big tech background, that you understand the technology side. So what ways can we harness technology to make our events more sustainable?
Just to clarify, I don't have a big tech background. I have thoughts about how to use tech environmentally. So
She's
just
also
want to
very
qualify
humble.
that. My thing about tech, and as I have traveled roughly 30 countries, lived in a bunch of other locations as well, territories, I think tech is the equalizer. Like if you look at it as being the more informed traveler, the more informed planner, the more informed tour operator, using that to become more educated on intercultural respect, including authentic experiences that are also reducing the environmental impact, but also a net positive for the social and the access to the local economies. That's the biggest pieces around education through tech and through tech apps, but also knowing what's the appropriate and authentic access points for tech as well versus what is more content and comment around opinions. That makes sense. So I just want to emphasize Global Sustainable Tourism Council. I was one of the board members for 3 years. They were a UNEP-backed organization. They established these standards that were very deep on environment, social, and economic impact for meeting convention business as well. So I would look on their website. It's free, accessible, gives you guidance on that too. Includes tech and using information.
I love having those resources to be able to look that up and see what your footprint is on it. Brianna, there's, I'm sure, various metrics and standards. You kind of started to touch on those earlier. What technology are you using? How are you measuring all of that? What does your day look like?
Yeah, I mean, so I'm in charge of truly tracking the entirety of our arena and team's environmental footprint. How the heck do I do that? It's a combination between, I'd say, like high tech and low tech. A lot of spreadsheets, as you can imagine, a lot of Excel. But through our partnership with Amazon, Amazon actually built us our very own carbon dashboard. So through that partnership, we were able to gain a tool that helps me out with my job. What does that look like? That looks like a tool that helps me measure utilities in the arena. Everybody has a bill here that they pay, right? I get all of our energy, water, and waste bills and place that into our carbon tracker to understand what greenhouse gas emissions look like for all of our utilities. Past utilities, it also helps me gather fan data, so how fans are getting to our arena. So if you come to a Kraken game or any show at Climate Pledge Arena, you're going to get a post-event survey, which I'm sure like we're all very familiar with, right? How'd we do? But in that survey, we actually have a transportation question that asks folks, how did you get to our event today? And we list every mode of transit possible in the city of Seattle. I get those survey results after every event, and I'm able to track the greenhouse gas emissions associated with fan travel to our arena. Same with performer travel. I'll pick Billie Eilish because she's one of my favorite artists. But when Billie Eilish came to our arena, we asked her production team, how many private jets did Billie Eilish take? How many semis were associated with her tour? And we do this for every show and every event that comes through our doors. And having tools like our carbon dashboard help me understand what the greenhouse gas emissions look like for performer travel. Same goes for food coming into our building and waste leaving our building. These are the types of emissions that we're tracking because if we don't understand and if we don't track and measure, we can't reduce moving forward. So kind of going back to the question that was originally asked, where can you really start if you don't know where to start? And this can all seem very intimidating, but just start tracking. You can't track what you don't measure. You can't reduce what you don't know. Start with the easy, low-hanging fruit. Energy, water, and waste. Your finance team always has those bills. Also find a champion in your space. At this point, every job is a climate job, and I rely on all of my friends at the arena to help me with my job as a team of 2.5. These tools are helpful, but it's also useful to use the folks around you.
I love that piece. So I'm sure Alaska has some ways. You talked about getting rid of all of the single use on all of the flights. What other ways are you helping to make sure that you're reducing that waste management and footprint for it?
Yeah, I mean, it starts again without looking upstream. You know, by the end of next year, our goal is to eliminate our top 5 plastic, you know, by weight on our planes. And it's a process, right? It's looking at each one of those. It's measuring and understanding which one are the biggest contributors, and then going to the market and say, hey, this is a use case that we have. How can you help me solve that? And it's, you know, multi-RFP, all those kinds of things. So it is using data to help us identify, but it's also using our people on the planes and our frontline employees that have just tremendous ideas and passion around our product. I think our flight attendants, our pilots, our CSRs are just incredibly passionate about being Alaska employees, and they want us to be a better airline. So we often solicit feedback from all over. We have probably the most robust green team I've ever seen at a big company. Hundreds of employees that volunteer their time to see how we can be better. And so, you know, I would touch on and echo what B said, which is, you know, find those champions within your business. Maybe it's you, maybe it's someone on your team, but there's absolutely someone within your organization that cares about this. Empower them to ask questions, empower them to find business models, because a lot of these things will pay back. They will add value to your brand, to your company, to your employees, to your guests. All of these things sort of add up. They may not all be measurable, but they are absolutely important to who you are and the business that you want to have in the future. So,
I love that. As we begin to wrap up here, because we're just about at time, if you could leave the audience, including our live stream audience, hello everyone back there, if you could leave the audience with one takeaway from this, what would that be? And I will start down at that end and put you on the spot, kind sir.
Sure. You know, I think it's going back to asking the questions. Ask the questions, right? So we are all big companies, and I appreciate probably not many here are publicly reporting companies, but companies in the future will be required to disclose, per SEC rules, their emissions, right? And per California law, their emissions upstream and downstream of their supply chain. So you may be getting these questions asked in the near future from your clients. So start to ask yourself these questions. How can I measure? What are the first steps I can take? And then just go do it. Just start. Don't wait for some big plan to be formed within your company. Just start with the simplest, most easy and free thing that you can do is start asking the question.
I love that. Gwen, what would your one takeaway for our audience be?
I would say embed your sustainability views, economic, social, environmental, as part of your company strategy. Where do you want to be in 5 years? What do your brand value want to look, whether it be a department within, I see some city folks here at Seattle Public Utilities, whether it be a department you're in or a business owner, think about where you want to be in 5 years and how you embed sustainability as an aspect of it rather than an element of your brand. Because I think it could be core, it could be an ROI. It really should be, and that's how you're going to be successful long term.
I love that. B, what would you leave our audience with today?
Yeah, I'd say start small and dream big, but stay authentic. I mean, if you're tracking something that's not authentic to your business, it's not going to feel authentic. So pick something, whether it's waste, water, energy, fan travel, performer travel, and just get really good at that one thing and go from there.
I love that. What I would love to leave everybody with is be so proud of yourselves for even sitting here being at the show. I would be talking this up and shouting it out from the rooftops that every single person here, you're going to have an actionable takeaway. Like if you look at my out of office right now, I'm absolutely bragging about the fact that we're all here to all do better. So talk up Northwest Event Show. Talk up that this is why you're out of your office. Take that time to disconnect for a few minutes and really learn from the amazing speakers that the team has put together here, and just start with that one small step for it all. I'm so glad that you could all join us. I appreciate everyone asking about Search Foundation, wanting to help our industry do better. This amazing panel, can we give them like the biggest round of applause that makes everyone here look this way? We can do better than that, this amazing panel. I love it. Again, there is an entire speaker area. Everyone's going to head over there. If you want to ask one-on-one questions, don't hesitate to. And if you see anyone wearing those golden hearts for Search, but enjoy your show. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you.